unheard of. Just to say, I've got some questions in relation to people with pre-existing conditions. Do you think that the travel insurance market is working for people with long-term health conditions? There are a number of issues around mainstream providers. Floodery obviously provides an interesting example of pooling risks. Is there a case for looking at something like that for those with pre-existing conditions? We've got examples of cancer patients who are facing difficulties with getting insurance. Older people also pay higher premiums, anyone with pre-existing conditions. Are there things we could do to improve that in terms of market failure?
Yes, happy to cover that. I think it's quite an important topic. We have done a number of things. For example, we are part and have signed the ABA mental health and insurance standards. We give cover to a wide range of customers. On average, in Admiral, we tend to give cover to more than the average of the market. We do cover customers with long-term health conditions, including mental health, and we recently engaged with the Money and Mental Health Institute and other bodies to better understand what we can do to take this further. So it's an important point, but we do our best to offer cover, and especially in Admiral, we don't give any exclusions based on health conditions.
So you don't do any exclusions based on...
We don't do exclusions. We offer cover to a majority of cases.
There are presumably premium is much higher if you've got pre-existing conditions, which is one of the issues that it can be exclusionary, and there are specific elements to the policies that makes it almost impossible for people to take up travel.
What we do is we comply with the FCA medical signposts rules. So basically, if that is the case, that the premium is going to be higher because of a health condition, we show it to the customer. We give them alternative providers that they can contact.
Yeah, and
so we're doing our best.
Do you use specialist insurers? Do you signpost them to specialist
yes,
providers?
We do.
Yeah, and you are obviously aware that the specialist insurers aren't able to pool risks in the same way. So it means that what's going to be on offer for those with pre-existing conditions is going to be suboptimal from their point of view.
Yes, and we're very, as I said, we have engaged with different bodies, and we're very open to discuss how can we solve this. I think it's not just insurers, it's insurance and government. Very
do you
happy.
think there is a case for looking at something like the Floodery style insurance, a pooling system, so that it works for people with pre-existing health conditions?
There could be a case. I think we should be open to investigate.
Charlotte and Doug.
Yeah, the actuary in me.
Go on.
Sorry, the actuary in me says it's slightly different than Floodery because it's a small amount that you're pooling over.
Yep.
Here, actually, some of the claims in travel, if you're repatriating people and doing stuff, is very high, and therefore it may be prohibitive if you and you might price everybody else out of the travel insurance. I think we can look at it, but it might be difficult.
This is an area where there's a role for government to reduce look at how they can remove some of the barriers that are there to provide more of a level playing field with those with serious pre-existing conditions, to support the market so that the market failure is addressed, and you're not, because obviously if you're left to your own devices, it's going to take the course that it is. Is there a case for joint working with the industry by government to look at what can be done to ensure that we get somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always. I think we should work with government.
Is this something that you have looked at as the Association of Insurers to look at where there could be a joint programme of action with support from government to suggest proposals that could then address this issue about people being excluded? Yeah. It cannot be fair or right that because you've had the misfortune of getting cancer, or have other pre-existing, or have the good fortune of we're all going to age, we're all aging. As you get older, it all becomes much more expensive. It's in all our interests to look at a way forward. So what have you been doing in terms of this agenda? Have you had conversations?
So on the travel agenda in particular, there's some specific kind of areas that we've been focusing on. as Christina mentioned, some of that was around mental health. So obviously mental health is a very broad kind of definition. So if you're just asking somebody if you had mental health issues, that could be you had depression when you were doing your A-levels. It could be a very serious existing mental health issue. So that there's something we've been trying to work with the industry in terms of making sure that we have kind of clarity in terms of how people with mental health issues are being treated, and where they are well-managed conditions, that people are
but on
not
this specific
disadvantaged.
issue, on this specific around specialist insurers, cancer patients and so on, and you will have seen the piece in the Telegraph about some of the ways that the horrific situations people are in. Is this something you're speaking to government about? Would you consider doing that? Would you look at coming up with a set of some proposals on what could be done to address that issue, or not?
It kind of comes back to, I think we've mentioned a couple of times, in terms of the premium. The premium is the risk of something happening and the cost if it happens.
Sure, and I'm saying, why don't you talk to the government to say, how do we mitigate that risk so that people
if you're saying that you think that there
failure
should be a kind of social intervention
a policy intervention, potentially.
A policy intervention that basically says, right, well, actually you should pool so that older people or people with existing conditions are not disadvantaged. I mean, that's a matter for society.
But that's what industry do. Companies spend time lobbying. Insurance company lobbied the government on Solvency II. You talk to government all the time on issues that affect your companies. Yeah. So it's not like you're immune to doing that, to talking to government on other issues. We talked about Solvency II earlier. There are many other areas where the Chancellor gets lobbied by your industry and others. Why don't you talk to them about this? This would be a positive thing to look at, to see where some answers could be arrived at, so that customers get a fairer treatment, given that there are understandable market failures. We recognise the context in which you're working. That's what I'm interested to know. There doesn't seem to be the will to do so.
No, I don't think that's fair, because I think what we've tried to do is really kind of think, right, how can we make the system as it currently work better for customers? Big systemic changes.
With respect, it's not working well for customers with pre-existing conditions, which is why we're asking these questions.
But setting up things like directories, things like codes of practice with regards to how we treat people with mental health issues, all of those things improve.
That's good. That's really helpful. But the question was about the cost and the prohibitive nature of the policies that create exclusions that makes it impossible for people to, for instance, leave the country for a holiday or whatever. That's the issue.
Yeah, no, I guess I completely get that. But let's take another example. Drivers. Older people pay less for motor insurance because younger drivers, are deemed to be a higher risk. Is that fair?
I think cancer is quite a different type of example.
I'm not trying to be facetious, but I'm just saying that there are different risks and different fairness. So in terms of, should we allow kind of...
I've got three more quick questions before the vote comes, and when the bell rings we will have to go. I want to turn to the question about discrimination. The Citizens' Advice stated that insurance companies do not collect ethnicity data on their customers. Can you confirm that this is the case?
Yes,
100%.
Can you also confirm that you don't use algorithmic pricing that takes into account the name of the person buying the insurance?
100%.
Great. And would someone get the same quote for life insurance irrespective of their name and racial ethnicity or nationality if all the other risks were the same?
Yes.
Great, thank you. And can insurance providers car insurance providers that used to be allowed to discriminate based on gender but are no longer allowed to do so, do you think it is still conscionable for insurance firms to be allowed to discriminate based on age and other characteristics?
Yeah.
Do you think it is the question?
I'm happy to say that I believe that the role of the industry and the role of the insurance industry should be to try to price using all legal data that we can to predict the claim risk. I think that is the best solution for society. And I think whenever there are societal issues, like you just mentioned about, people with serious illnesses trying to travel, that's when the government should come in. So our role as a private industry should be to look at the claim risk. The role of the government should be the societal. So I'm completely welcome that. Very happy to work together in trying to find solutions to these problems.
Brilliant. Good note to finish. Thank you. I think we might have a partnership. Maybe if my party's in government, we can work with you on this.
Thank you very much with all that information.
Thank you.
Can I say that the bell